I got something to say here, Jordan.
Let's hear it.
Last episode sucked. We were at an undisclosed location. I was not properly prepared. I just want to say one thing to the fans and everybody, PT Podcast Nation. I'm sorry. Extremely sorry. We were hoping for a streak of dominant podcasts. That was my goal. Something the PT Pod has never done before. But I promise you one thing. A lot of good will come from that shitty episode last week. You will never see another podcaster in the entire country podcast as hard as I will for the rest of the season. And you will never see someone push his co-host as hard as I will push my co-host the rest of the season. And you'll never see a team of podcasters podcast as hard as we will podcast the rest of the season. God bless.
I wonder who's going to know what that's from. That was amazing.
Leave a YouTube comment if you know the reference. Jordan, how we doing?
I just watched that clip for the first time immediately before this. Did you have the script? Did you write that down so you could read off of it?
Yeah.
Dude, that was great.
Yeah. Well, hey, it was a bad podcast. It's on me, and we're going to turn it around. We got a lot of 2024 left. We're going to get after it.
Yeah, and I said the wrong name of my coach. Daniel Yora's just DM me and be like, hey, bro, I know you said it was Neil Magny, but you said his nickname is Hands of Steel. Yeah, my coach's name is actually Jeff Neal. So I'm hoping the UFC fighter Jeff Neal doesn't listen to our podcast, so he's not like, what the fuck? But
that's an honest slip of the tongue. They have an overlapping name, Neal.
Yeah. Either way, last podcast wasn't our greatest.
It wasn't the greatest, but a lot of good's going to come from this. I got some things for us, Jordan. Are you ready?
Yeah, dude, I'm ready.
It's not a new study. It's a study from the fall of 2023. A randomized control trial.
Oh, wow.
I just heard about it for the first time. Just adding more evidence to the pile where people for, I believe it was 8 weeks, lifted weights. There were like 8 compound exercises or 8 exercises. Some were compound, some were isolation exercises. Twice a week, 25-minute sessions. So 50 minutes a week of workouts. Saw massive improvements in symptoms of depression. And these were I believe these were all people who struggled with depression, but not major depression. And the results were better in the strength training group than with medication alone. More evidence.
Was there a strength training and medication group?
I don't know for certain.
It's still very interesting.
We'll link it because it's been a week now since I looked at it, but we'll link it in the show notes. But yes.
It's also, it doesn't surprise me. Like, it doesn't surprise me. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I've been through depressed periods in my life, and how you feel after working out is it's incredible. Especially when you have a specific goal, like a performance-based goal, and you hit a goal, that achievement of, all right, I'm this strong now, I accomplished this goal or whatever. Dude, very few things in life are that rewarding. And to get that on a consistent basis through strength training, man, like I'm not surprised at all. I love that. I'm glad you found that study.
Yeah. What you talk about there with performance-based goals is amazing. And the example that comes to mind for me is, getting to do your first chin up or hitting a PR on a certain movement. The micro workout to workout and week to week improvement in performance that is dopaminergic and is upward seeking is progressive overload. If you can add 1 rep week over week, if you can increase the weight 2.5 pounds on each side week over week, if you can, do the same weight, but with more control and better technique week over week, those little improvements really help mentally, and especially help when you're not seeing progress in other areas. The scale's not necessarily moving, you're not going to see visual changes week to week and sometimes month to month, depending on your goal and where you're at. So having those markers, it could be improvements in flexibility if you're taking progress pictures, if you're doing a side split, for example, Jordan, and you have a picture from June, and then you have a picture from July, and you can notice, oh, I got a little bit more range here.
Yeah, or it's like same range but less RPE or lower RPE, or you could get in that range without as much of a warm up, right? That's what you could get at the end of the session, but now at the beginning of the session, you're in that range. But this is something that personally I really attribute it to Louis Simmons. I don't know who you would attribute it to. Obviously, I have so much loyalty to Louis, but Louis used to get a lot of flack for saying you could hit a PR or you should try to hit a PR every workout. A lot of people used to hate on him for it. And when I would talk to him in person, he'd be like, you should absolutely be able to hit a PR every workout. He's like, it doesn't have to be lifting more weight, right? It's like you should be able to, in some variation, do better than you previously have done with that variation, whether it's one more rep or a little bit better technique, or if you can lift more weight, fantastic. But there's always a way you can improve. Sometimes maybe it's a bad workout, bad day, bad sleep, whatever it is. Maybe there will be a day here and there where you can't. But striving for improvement in literally every workout, that's the best thing you can do. And there's no better feeling than when cards are stacked against you, life isn't going your way, but you can go in the gym and you can still find a way to improve. It's like, it's the best.
Yeah, 100%. And we're not saying, if you have a doctor and you're on medication for something, like don't just dump it out and never talk to your doctor again and start lifting and take our bro advice here. Like that's clearly not where we're going with this, but just more evidence in the benefits of strength training and exercise in general.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, it's just like, we're not the most dogmatic of people. We try and be more balanced. And there's been a movement of exercise isn't therapy or weightlifting isn't therapy, when the reality is there are many different types of therapy. And if we want a more nuanced discussion around it, exercise is one form of therapy. Talk therapy is a different type of therapy. And even within talk therapy, there are different types. There's cognitive behavioral therapy. There's different types of therapy, one of which is exercise. And it's consistently proven to be among the most effective forms for people. Now, it's not the only one. And if it's not working for you and you need another type, amazing, go for it. We're not saying there's only one type, but from the perspective of understanding and a more nuanced approach, exercise is one very viable form of therapy.
Well said. Clips Nation. Jordan, have you seen this new trend?
Which one?
Men are raw dogging flights.
Oh, dude, I have seen this. Did you and I talk about it? Because I've seen this. I don't know.
I don't think so.
That's so funny. Yeah, I've seen this a lot lately. Actually, yeah.
Do you want to explain it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's these dudes are going onto airplanes, and during a long flight, they are not reading, not looking at their phone, not looking at. They're just sitting there. Sometimes they look at the flight path of the plane, but they just sit there and look at nothing for the entire flight.
Just stare at the seat in front of them.
Did you see that this was actually in one of the episodes of Seinfeld?
No.
This is an episode, I forget the guy's name, but in one episode of Seinfeld, Elaine is dating this dude, and this dude is on the flight and he's just staring, and Elaine's reading a book. This is obviously before cell phones or before like smartphones for sure. And Elaine is like, hey, do you want to read, or like, do you want to watch a movie? And I think his name was Putty. And he's like, no, I'm good. And he's just staring straight ahead. And she's like losing her shit. She's just like, you don't want anything. You're just going to stare. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to stare. And like,
that's a good
clearly
impression.
In her mind, she's like upset because his character is not an intelligent character. So in her mind, she's like, all right, he's just flatlining in there. He has no brain waves going on. But yeah. I see this all the time now. And I'm like, oh man, that's incredible. And they call it raw dogging it.
Yeah,
where they just the whole flight.
Bringing the term raw dogging to mean something innocuous like that and just have it in like normal vocabulary is hilarious in and of itself. But also the practice in our overly stimulated, social media society to sit there and you'll see someone like just raw dogged a flight to Singapore, or just raw, like 11-hour flight raw dog. Yeah. And then they'll have a before and after picture. Dude just sitting there, hands on the seat, staring at either the flight map or just the seat in front of him, not moving for the entire flight.
It's incredible.
Do you think you could do it?
Could I? Yeah, I think I could. I think it would be incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah, I think it'd be incredibly uncomfortable. Obviously, I could do it if I needed to do it, but I would prefer not to. There are so many other things I would rather do.
Do you think you could do it if you didn't need to do it?
No.
Like if there's no money on the line, it's not like, hey, gun to your head,
like
you have to.
If I was just in my head, I just want to. If I wanted to prove to myself really badly, yeah, then that could happen. But if there was no real incentive, no real like tangible incentive, I probably wouldn't do it. No.
Well, I think the tangible incentive is dopamine detox.
Yeah.
It's down regulating what stimulation does to you.
Yeah. My issue with that is I'm still on my phone so much for work and for what I like need to be. And so obviously I'm on it way more than I have to. But, and this is probably so stupid. This is probably like the kind of person who's saying, oh yeah, I'm waiting to work out until I'm healthy or something. But it's like, my idea is wait until I'm at a point in my life where I don't need to be on my phone as much. And then I can really sort of take that, do that and use it less. But for me, right, it's like a drug and I can't get away from the drug. Right? I'm still on it all the time for work anyway. Does that make sense?
It makes sense that you're saying it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Might just be a stupid excuse.
No, not a stupid excuse. I think it's a perfectly reasonable excuse.
Reasonably stupid excuse.
No. But it's also hard to divorce real meaningful work on your phone from shenanigans on your phone.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're using it to create content like you are on nearly a daily basis and do many other things, then you're right there where you also have access to scrolling and everything else. So it makes sense. You're on a 6-hour flight and you have work that needs to be done on your phone. You're just not going to just sit and look at the chair in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you could do it. I feel like you do that every day.
No, I definitely don't. I go through streaks in my life where I'm better and most streaks I'm worse, but no, it's very hard.
Are you going to do that on your next flight?
Probably not. I could do it if it was a challenge, but not if I'll probably watch Gladiator or Braveheart or.
Did you consider doing it on your recent, because you just had a bunch of flights over the last few weeks. Did you consider doing it or had you not heard of it yet?
I considered doing it when I was already 2/3 of the way through my flight on the way home when I was like, burnt out, had been eating crappy, was underslept, not in a great. And I did it for about 8 seconds and I was like, I'm not doing this right now. And I had downloaded movies on my phone and just watched part of one of those.
It's so funny. We were outside this morning, not outside. I was outside my office in the living room and we were trying to figure out what show we were going to put on for my daughter to watch in the morning, just because we were going to have like a little movie morning, July 4th, just hang out and relax after we did some dancing. And I was like, oh, why don't you put on like a Cinderella or something like that? Like the old school Cinderella, the old, the classic. And my wife says, that one's a little bit slow. I don't think she likes that one. I was like, put it on. Like because the kids shows nowadays are so fast. They change so quickly. I was like, no. Like if it's slow, that's a good thing. We need to keep it slow, not flashing, not changing scenes, like, and so we put it on and dude, it's so crazy to see how much slower those movies are. But she started to really enjoy it. At first it wasn't as exciting, but like she started to really enjoy it once she sat down and got into the story.
That's really smart. That's really smart by you guys because just 90s Disney was different in many ways, but Speed being one of them. And compared to, it's almost like a treat. It's like a fun, enjoyable thing. You don't just get to sit there and watch movies all day, every day as a kid.
Right.
And so when you get to watch one, it's something special. And for it to be, almost like the lowest effective dose of something.
Yeah.
Right. So you're getting the enjoyment without, having it be, a 2019 vlog style video where it's just changing scenes every 4 seconds.
I've been trying to look at some of these children's shows and I try and see how many how many scenes last longer than 30 seconds.
Mm.
Just as an idea of like, okay, like how long before this scene changes dramatically, like before it's like a jump cut.
Mm-hmm.
Man, almost all these shows jump, 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 jump. And so then I did it with Cinderella, or no, this morning it was Beauty and the Beast. And
classic.
Man, those scenes last a long time. They're like 12, 15, 20-second scenes before it cuts somewhere. Versus now all these shows on TV are like quick, 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 quick. It's scary.
Yeah, it is. And going further, well, probably going further that way. Although I think there will be a pushback against it as well, which we're seeing in some of the long form YouTube, like low editing, you know, less cinematic style videos in fitness specifically. But I was like 10% embarrassed that I was doing this, but I watched The Lion King on a flight not that long ago.
The original?
Which is the original.
So
which
good.
Is an unbelievable movie, not only in terms of what you're describing right now, but also an archetypal hero's journey.
Yeah, Lion King is amazing.
They don't make them like that anymore.
Everything down about
to
it
all the voice actors are unbelievable.
Yes.
The artists who did the drawings of like the characters' faces and expressions are so good. It's
the music.
The music is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just there's so many themes in there too, right? Like responsibility and everything the light touches is your responsibility as king, like the good king. And then you have the evil uncle. You have the nihilistic, you know, Peter Pan paradise with Timon and Pumbaa who are out there running around and they're vegans. Funny. And it's like there are so many themes that are relevant today that there just isn't. I don't want to say there isn't fiction like that today, but it was much more mainstream at that time than it is now.
Yeah. Those are the classics. Those are now. I don't see it nowadays. I don't see it at all. It's much like it's short stories. It's quick fixes, quick hits of dopamine. Like there's not like that. You create a real relationship with the characters in that stuff in a way that I don't think that we have nowadays. And even there have been many actors. I think Mark Wahlberg has spoken about it, about how movies nowadays, like it's very different. And so much of it is based on how they make money ever since.
True.
Because before, when a movie would come out, first they would make a lot of money in the release in the theaters. And then there would be a delay. Then there would be a lot of money again to be made, whether it was on VHS or DVD. But now that theaters don't make as much, and also it's more streaming services, the way they get paid is very different. So now these producers and directors they're literally making movies in a way to maximize the amount of money that they'll make. I don't even know how to articulate it, but maximize it from the streaming service, which is oftentimes they're just going for whatever people think they want to see rather than what they might need to see.
Yeah, which means remakes of previously popular movies and movies with massive built-in audience. So if a book becomes enormously popular, they know that they have this huge audience that will see the movie. They don't want to take the risk of not getting that back end, or, you know, especially I think Matt Damon talked about this too a few times.
Is it Matt Damon? Yeah, it might have been
probably
Matt
Mark Wahlberg too. But, you know, like you said, DVD was half of the revenue for actors getting that back end. And it's just not worth the risk for studios to invest tens of millions plus into these Hollywood actors to potentially not get their money back on release.
Especially now, because and the actors are struggling too, because now it's less about how good of an actor you are and more about how big of your audience already is. Because they know if you have a big audience already, then your fans will come to see you. So actors are really struggling because they've been going to school for this for years. They've been taking classes. They've been studying this. And then all of a sudden, someone who is a terrible actor but has a huge social media audience is taking their role. It's it's really crazy.
Have you ever told our podcast audience what you used to do on long solo road trips?
We've definitely spoken about it before. We could talk about it again.
I think people should actually try this. Because I think you probably acquired skills that were very useful for you in business.
100%. I did. Yeah.
Or maybe there's a way to try it without annoying people as much. But do you want to tell this story?
Yeah. I mean, well, some people weren't annoyed. Some people really enjoyed it. But
okay, true. I'm just thinking of myself if I got one. That's fair.
But the challenge was to get someone like you to have a real legit conversation with me. But you'd probably be like, what the hell? Why are you wasting my time?
Tell them what we're talking about.
So when I was in college, I would have these 7+ hour drives to and from University of Delaware. So when my mom lived in Boston, so I'd go see her when it was Thanksgiving or whatever it was, when I would drive to and from school a couple times a year. I would have these really long drives, and I'm not gonna, like, number one, I didn't have a smartphone. I had a flip phone back then, and I'm not looking at my phone. So, and I had like CDs playing, but you know me, I need that dopamine. So I would get like, I would call my friends and I would talk to people, but after, I don't know, a couple of hours, you sort of maxed everybody out. You can't just call everybody in your phone list. So I forget how I came up with it, but I started calling random numbers. So I would dial a number like that was close to one, because if you just dial a random number, you don't know if it's going to go to a real person. So I would, like, if my number is like, I would dial my number, but then change like 2 numbers, knowing that, okay, well, this has got to go to somebody. And then people would pick up. And they'd be like, hello. And this is way before, like, now people won't answer a number they don't know. But
right.
People would always answer at that point. They'd be like, hello. And I'd be like, hey, how's it going? And they'd be like, good. Can I help you? And basically, like, my goal was to have a legitimate conversation with a complete stranger that I didn't know, and get them to the point where we could have a conversation and learn about each other and have a full-on conversation that would be great for me, because I could take up time on the road that I was really bored on. And also, like, it turned out to be definitely good, because I learned strategies to immediately say hello and get someone on the phone and sort of hook them in and like have a real conversation with them. And I would say I got it to a point where it was probably like 70-30, 70% of people would hang up within the first minute, and 30% of people I'd have like a legit at least 5-minute conversation with.
What would you say though? Like, hey, how's it going? And then would you be like, would you tell them I'm calling random numbers, I'm on a road trip?
Yeah. So what I would do is, at first, and this was not a good strategy, is I would be like, hey, listen, don't hang up. Like, it'd be hello, I'd be like, hey, listen, don't hang up. My name's Jordan. I'm driving, and then, like, boom, they would hang up. Like, because I would try and get it in before there was any conversing back and forth. Then I started being like, hey, how's it going? Almost as though, like, they might know who I am. And they'd be like, good, how are you? I'd be like, I'm good. I'm driving back from school. Wanted to call and say hello. And they'd be like, I'm sorry, who is this? And I'd be like, this is going to sound really weird. My name is Jordan, and I'm calling people, I'm calling numbers just to have a real conversation. So I'm just like, what's your name? Like, tell me about yourself. Da, 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 da. Or, to be honest, when I would say, what's your name? Tell me about yourself, that would not get a good response. I would have to do the talking first. So I'd be like, my name's Jordan. I'm driving back to Boston from University of Delaware. I'm just calling people because I'm bored on my trip. And I'm just like trying to have real conversation with people. I don't know if you're busy right now or not, but I'm like 21 years old. I'm a power lifter. I'm just driving back from school. Like, how's your day going? And then it was funny because it was usually women, like probably older women. But like, when I say older, I don't mean they're old, but not 20-year-old or any. It was usually women between like 40 to 60 who would laugh, and they'd be like, "Oh, sweetie. Like, I'm good. How are you?"
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, this, like, he's lonely," and we'll talk.
Yeah.
And so those were usually the ones who would talk. There were sometimes some younger guys who would be like, "Oh, what's up, man?" But like, it was usually women between probably 40 and 60, and we'd have There were some times where I'd have like an hour-long conversation with them.
Wow.
That was not the norm, but yeah, there were occasional ones where that would happen. But it was I learned that if I did most of the talking first, rather than putting the onus on them to talk, it worked much better. So
which is different from your strategy in other conversations.
Yeah, with my like if I'm doing a sales call, or if I'm getting a client on a sales call, it's almost always. But the difference is they're expecting that call and they know me.
Of course.
Whereas with this one, it's funny. There are. And this is a separate topic, but a lot of guys get really nervous to go speak to women that, hey, maybe she's really cute. I want to get her number. And they're like, what do I say? And it's funny because what I would always tell my friends is if you talk to someone who is like with someone, whether they're a long-term relationship, married, engaged, whatever, if you ask them what's the very first thing that you two said to each other, very rarely will they actually remember. Like they will have, I've met a couple people, but almost never do they remember the very first thing they spoke about in person. And so it's helpful to know that because most people, they put too much emphasis on the very first thing they say, when the reality is when you first start talking, your goal is just to make them feel comfortable. And most of making them feel comfortable is with you talking and your tone of voice. It has far less to do with what you're actually saying. So when I would start by being like, hey, how's it going? Yes, my name's Jordan. I'm driving back from school. I'm a power lifter. And I was literally just like, they were just trying to get a feel for, am I trying to sell them something? Is like, why are they trying to get information from me? And that's why it didn't work when I said, what's your name? Tell me about yourself, because then they would think I'm trying to get information. When I give them legitimate, real information about me, I calm their nerves. They don't have anything going on in the background. Their kids aren't screaming and they don't have anything to rush to. If they actually have time to talk and listen, they become very comfortable. But yeah, on a sales call, they know it. They know who I am. They're excited. They want to work with me. So that's when I'll let them talk first.
It's funny because your intro is the same now. Hey, how's it going? Or hey, how are you? Is like the classic. Hey, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
You know what else that reminds me of? If you want to just really quickly explain the 55-38-7 principle.
Oh, man. Can you explain it? Because I freaking already forget it from Chris Voss.
Dude, I don't know. I just heard you talk about it once. It's like, I just remember the 7% is what you're actually saying. It's like what people, when you're speaking, what matters, whether it's in persuasion or like maintaining someone's attention. It's like what the content of what you're saying is 7%. And then it's how you're saying it is, you can read it. You're pulling it up right now.
Yeah, I just found it. Okay. So, body language and speech patterns. This is by Chris Voss. So there's the 7-38-55 rule. 7 plus 38 plus 55 equals 100. It originally came up from a study of UCLA professors back in the 1970s. The three components of communication are the content, the tonality, and the body language. 7% represented how much they liked the content. 38% represented how much they liked the tonality, and 55% represented how much they liked the body language. So it's so funny. I didn't even think about that. I'm glad you brought that up. If it's on the phone, obviously body language is irrelevant. And if it's 7% is about what you're saying, 38% is about how you're saying it. That's if you're in person. On the phone, it's probably way more about how you're saying it and less and less about what you're saying. So, yeah, that's very, very interesting. I completely forgot about that rule. That's exactly right.
High energy, positivity, smile, good posture, like when you're in person, and that's 93% of perception.
On the phone, it was actually, I want to be careful with high energy. I had to really learn to tone down the energy and just appear calm, like almost just like a friend would, like, hey, how are you? Rather than being like,
sure,
what's going on? You know what I mean? So
in that specific scenario, when it's a stranger,
scenario,
yes. In life, high energy people win. Low energy people, like it's clear as day.
Yes, without question. Yeah, but in terms of the tone you're using, making, and for whatever it's worth, what's also interesting is your body language impacts your tone. So I even noticed this just this morning. I was recording a video for Instagram, and I noticed that my tone was a little, it wasn't harsh. My tone was almost bored with the video that I was recording. And so all I did is I just made sure I was like, all right, I'm going to redo this take and I'm just going to smile throughout the take while I do it. Just like a not like a goofy smile, not a big, but like a light, moderate smile. And then in the take that when I was reviewing that take, the tone was way better. It was much more excited and uplifting, which is what I was looking for early on in the video. And so it's your body language actually does make a big difference in how your tone comes across.
Content creation strategy 101.
I think you know who talks about that. I'm pretty sure Dale Carnegie talks about that. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he speaks about how when you're smiling and you're on the phone,
they can hear
you can hear it. You can hear their smile, which you absolutely can for sure.
I remember that. Want to fire up some questions?
Bro, I would love to fire up some questions.
Let's fire them up.
I don't know if you're going to want to answer this one. Let's see. This is the type of question that I feel like we would get in the mentorship. So let's see if you want to answer it or not. If a client loses her period despite slow weight loss and not being very lean yet, do you keep going and then after getting to the goal body composition, work to get the period back? Or do you pause the weight loss, get her out of a deficit straight away, and continue dieting only after the period is back?
We can talk about this. It's slightly out of my area of expertise. My default here is if a female client is losing her menstrual cycle during dieting, we're going to increase calories because you know, I'm not training someone for a bikini show. I'm not trying to put someone on stage. You know, for basically all women who are consistently menstruating, right, who haven't gone through menopause, a period is a sign of a marker of good health. And if time in a fat loss phase has led to irregularities or losing her cycle, we're bringing calories back up. Now, if this is like an ongoing issue, if this is something that has happened even at maintenance, if this is something that she has experience with, if this is something that she has worked with her doctor, you know, gynecologist, endocrinologist, on these issues before, and there's something else going on, and she has the green light to lose body fat, and maybe this is very rare. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but if she was very overweight or obese and a reasonable calorie deficit coincided with her losing her cycle, and doctor said, no, you should still focus on losing body fat even though you've lost your period, that would be a situation where I'd be okay continuing to have her in a deficit. But yeah, in almost all scenarios, loss of period means bring calories back up.
Yeah. I mean, and in this situation, I can only speak hypothetically because I've never had a woman who was in a sustainable deficit who had a significant amount of weight to lose her period.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never had that happen. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but for me personally, that's never happened with any of my female clients. It has happened with female clients who were already relatively lean. They didn't have to be shredded, but they were already relatively lean. And then maybe they ended up reducing calories more than I told them to. Oftentimes this would happen when they increased activity way more than I had them doing. So when they would be really doing more cardio than I told them to, for example, that's really when it would happen. And that's when we'd have to sit down conversation. I'd be like, I need you to be very honest with me. Have you been doing way more than I told you to? They'd be like, yes, I have. I'm like, okay. Now, do we either increase calories or are you going to actually stick to the program? Like, I'm going to stick to the program. And that fixes it almost every time for at least in my experience, where, all right, there's no reason for you to be getting 30,000 steps in every day. Like, that's outrageous. And you're already lean and you're in a calorie deficit. Like, it's ridiculous. We take that person down to a normal activity level. All of a sudden their period comes back. I completely agree with you. If someone is relatively lean or if someone's period stops, I'm stopping. I'm saying go to the doctor, and we're probably gonna bring calories back up to normal, regardless. But it's never happened to any of my clients unless they were going way overboard with cardio, severely reducing calories, and they were already relatively lean.
And some coaches might be hearing you say that's never happened to any of your clients, and they're like, "Oh, well, that has happened to a couple of my clients. Like, what am I doing wrong, or like, what's different between what I'm doing and what Jordan's doing?" Something I've noticed over the years with the specific demo of petite, pretty lean female client who wants to get leaner, you just say no. You're like, nope.
Yeah, all the time.
No, you're not a candidate for fat loss. Oh, you're 5'1" and 115 pounds and like have some muscle and you want to get down to 110. Like, you're not phrasing it this way, but basically no.
Correct. There's literally a woman in my DMs today in the Q&A, probably today. We could probably find it. She was like, I'm 5 foot. I'm 126 pounds. I want to get to 122. And I'm not going to say like that's a no for sure, but I am like, why 122? I'm going to have a real conversation around why 122 specifically. How is that going to change your life? And for that person, they might not look how they want to look, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean the answer is calorie deficit for that person. You have a 5 foot 126 woman who's already very petite. Her calories are not going to be able to be very high. You could put her in a deficit. They're going to be low inherently. I'd rather be in maintenance, building muscle, do some body recomposition, building muscle, getting her steps in, spend 2 to 3 years there building real muscle. Like, that's going to be a completely different physique after 3 years without having to starve herself or without having to go in a serious deficit or radically increase activity. I think the key words there are 2 to 3 years. That's the key words there. Like, body recomposition takes a long time. When you have a very short, very petite person, it's way more difficult. So yeah, I have no problem telling people you're not a candidate for fat loss, and I'm not going to work with you for fat loss. I'm happy to help you with something else, but fat loss is off the table for you.
Good question.
And just so everyone knows, that is a question that is very reminiscent of what we answer in the mentorship. Obviously not just period related. We answer those as well, but like
a lot of
huge
client
portion
questions.
of mentorship is answering about client questions. What do you do in this situation? My client is struggling with this. Could be technique, could be nutrition, could be habits, lifestyle, could be hormone related. We have some people in there who are type 1 diabetics, who work with diabetics. We have people in there from all walks of life, men and women. So if you want a community of people who are not, they're focused on building their business, but not just their business. They also want to be better coaches. The mentorship is where it's at. Like, I don't know any community that's better than this. Obviously, I'm biased, but I really feel like in the last year, maybe year and a half, we've really hit our stride with the mentorship. We've just got a crew in there that is just, they're unbeatable. They're an amazing group of coaches. They're asking incredible questions. They're really striving to be the best coaches in the world. And the community in there, it's amazing. So if you want to join that group of people, that group of coaches, the link is in the description. But you won't get the type of questions you won't get these types of questions in really any other business program. Other business programs are all about like, how are we going to maximize high ticket coaching? How are you going to assign more clients and work less? And
Cold
it's like,
DMs, funnels.
Yeah. How about we just get you to be a really good coach? We'll also teach you how to make great content, how to build your business, how to do your systems, but we're also going to make you a fucking phenomenal coach, and that's what's going to drive your business.
Yeah, and we know that because that's the feedback we get from people who have been in other programs before joining the mentorship.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
And, at the end of the day, like the very, very bottom line is becoming a great coach and helping your clients as much as you possibly can is the best long-term business strategy.
100%.
It's the right thing to do, and it's the best for business, which is baffling that more people don't see that.
Yeah.
Or potentially they do and are just too short-term focused to like now, impatient would be the word I'm looking for there.
I think that and maybe it's pessimistic, I think one of the main reasons they don't focus on it is because they've never been passionate about being coaches. The people who come to the mentorship are coaches who are passionate about learning. Mm-hmm. Even just now, we had Aspasia the other day being like, I'm worried about letting my certification go out. And she knows how we feel about certifications. And a number of people in there echoed the same thing. I know you say we don't need it, but I'm nervous about letting my certification run out. There's a great conversation around it. But all these people are coaches who want to be the best coaches, whereas I think the people who are not passionate about being coaches, they're passionate about trying to make money and get rich quick. It's like and we've had those people apply and they don't get in. That's not who's joining the mentorship. It's if you want to apply, you better be passionate about being a coach, because we're not fucking putting a cancer in our community of someone who doesn't want to actually be a good coach.
Adding the application was such a good business move by us for the mentorship.
Yeah. I think that was your idea, and it was genius. It was super smart.
That wasn't my intent to get credit right there, but just I'm thinking that because in the past we've had a couple people who will just say we're more focused on purely the business side.
High ticket. If you use the word you want to be a high ticket coach, if you use that phrase, you're out. Like immediately. Sorry, not a good fit.
I'm a high ticket closer.
I've been getting so many of those ads on my Instagram feed. It's insane. I got an ad today. I woke up at 4 a.m. today, not by choice. I just couldn't go back to sleep. And I was death scrolling. And I got an ad from this guy who's literally and I see this a number of times from different people. His whole ad was, you need to stop making social media content. It's dead. It doesn't work. I have the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And I go to his page and he's still making social media content every day. So I commented on the ad and I was like, you're using social media for your ads to tell coaches that making content doesn't work. Meanwhile, not only is this ad content, but you're still making social media content every single day. So you're not even practicing what you preach. It's like, you don't even believe what you're selling. Mm-hmm. Don't get me started.
I love the sight of you waking up in the middle of the night, death scrolling, and then leaving like a raging comment at that time.
Dude, I was so pissed. I was in such a bad mood.
Well, that's not fun. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. All right. Court Schuyler asked, why do plateaus happen?
Many reasons. Are we talking fat loss plateaus?
I think we could go specific fat loss. We could also just go more broad, general why they happen. I mean, I'm happy to go any direction you want. I have in my mind the more broad. If you want to go specific, do that.
We can go more broad. I would say that the reason at a high level that most plateaus happen is lack of adherence over time, which is probably an unpopular answer. Like a lot of people are probably thinking metabolic slowdown. A lot of people are thinking, needing to adjust calories. Many people who see great progress when starting a fitness program and then eventually hit a plateau were very adherent for their first 8, 12, 16 weeks on that fitness program. Especially fat loss related, but it's hard to keep that same level of intensity and consistency and adherence over the long run. And so if someone potentially was in a little bit too big of a deficit that isn't sustainable forever, but is for a period of time, motivation's high, they just started paying for a service, so they don't want to be wasting their money. And they saw amazing progress in their first 3 months and then have started to plateau over months 4, 5, 6. The answer is probably looking at the adherence of that individual in their first 3 months compared to their months 4 through 6, rather than something technical like, oh, you were on 2250 calories and now we just need to reduce that amount for you to continue seeing fat loss progress.
I think there's something you said there. There's something specific you mentioned that most people will overlook and not understand. And I'm going to give people an opportunity before I say it. Just think about what Mike just said, maybe even rewind it, and guess what I'm about to pinpoint Mike just said that makes this so unique and specific to plateaus. I'm going to give you 1 second. If you want to think about it, rewind it. What Mike just said, I'm going to give you the answer now. So if you want to think about it for a second, pause. What Mike just said for a plateau is he specified months 4, 5, and 6 as a plateau. This is very smart, and it's so important because he didn't say 3 days. He didn't say 7 days. He didn't say 2 weeks. He said months 4, 5, and 6 at a plateau. And that for me is the most important part, because my answer was going to be that when plateaus happen because they're normal. And I was thinking of the time frame of 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 2 weeks. You were thinking of a legitimate plateau, not what people think it is, but what it actually is, because you're an ISTJ. So
True.
You're like, no, an actual plateau is months of no movement. And I think it actually they both go together really well. Because if you have someone who thinks a plateau is 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, and then they don't see movement for 7 days, even though that's normal, well, then they're no longer going to be consistent or adherent to it because they think it's not working. So then that elongates the plateau and actually becomes a legitimate plateau because they're not being adherent. Mm-hmm. But if over that 3 days, 7 days, 10 days, 20-day time period where they weren't seeing progress, if they had stayed consistent, there would have eventually been movement. They wouldn't be in a plateau anymore for 3 months straight. I think that the major issue is they think a plateau shouldn't last 3 days, 7 days, 10 days, 20 days, but it does. That's normal, even if you're being 100% consistent. 3 months? No. That if over 2-3 months, you're going to see movement. The longest plateau I've ever really seen, whether it's fat loss or strength or really whatever, the longest is somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And that's for someone who I know is being 100% consistent. They're not bullshitting. And that's also someone who's at a very high level. Someone who is like very high level. They're very lean. They're very strong. They're not making any progress. For most people who are not at a high level, they're not very lean. They're not a high level of fitness. They're not a high level athlete. Generally plateaus 3 to 4 weeks at most, and then you'll notice as long as you're staying consistent, you'll see movement. But that's like at most. So yeah, I think that's the perfect combination of answers.
Yeah, and it's such a good point that 3 days isn't a plateau, 5 days isn't a plateau. Like, getting comfortable looking at 7-day moving averages with scale weight, understanding that rate of progress is going to slow down over time, understanding that the leaner you get, the harder it is to lose more body fat. If you're 300 plus pounds and it's been 3 weeks and the scale hasn't moved at all and you are 100% adherent, then we need to look deeper at adherence. We need to look at hunger levels, look at where your calories are relative to what your estimated TDEE is. And there may be a reason to reduce calories in that specific situation. But for someone who is more advanced, scale weight can be in the same range for a number of weeks, and it doesn't necessarily mean that anything needs to change.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's the 4th of July. We're podcasting on America's birthday.
All right, you know what? Let's make a 4th of July question. Someone asked, would you still try to hit a protein goal on a day you know you will be in a surplus, i.e. today because July 4th?
Should we assume this person is losing fat? Or their goal is to lose fat?
Yeah, we can assume that, or we could just, let's assume that they're trying to lose some fat. Should they hit their protein goal?
And it's July 4th, and they're like, I'm not tracking today. I know I'm going to be in a surplus. I'm going to enjoy a barbecue. I'm going to enjoy whatever is offered to me. It depends what their protein goal is, in my mind. And I'm going more technical here because you could say 1 day doesn't matter. Like, that's a perfectly legitimate take here. But if they are trying to hit a gram per pound of body weight, and they know they're going to be in a surplus on a holiday, then bringing that down to 0.5 to 0.7 grams per pound of body weight, and having more carbs and fats, so they're in a little bit less of a total surplus, totally reasonable. Yeah, especially when you think about the types of foods that they want to be enjoying. If protein isn't your favorite macronutrient to be hitting, and you'd rather be eating, I don't know, whatever. What do people eat on the 4th of July that isn't protein? Pasta
Well, that's
salad.
what I'm thinking.
Chips.
I thought everyone eats meat on 4th of July. My answer was going to be like, this is the easiest holiday to hit your fucking, aside from Thanksgiving, this should be the easiest holiday to hit.
You're grilling.
Like, I don't.
Burgers,
you're
steaks.
Grilling, yeah.
Brats. Maybe they're big hot dog brat people and they want that high fat, low protein, like kind of make believe meat. It doesn't really matter. Yes, you can go if it's really hard for you to hit your protein and you'd rather not be on this enjoyable day trying to make food choices where you hit your protein and getting a shake in here and a shake in there. Yeah, you can reduce protein for the day. In fact, I have a client who has a very difficult 6 to 12 weeks, literally starting a couple weeks ago. And he was wondering if, because he's in a slight surplus, he wondered if reducing his calories might help make it easier during this time where he can't be as dialed with his nutrition. And what we actually did was we kept his calories elevated, but we dropped his protein from, he weighs 170-ish. We dropped it from the 170 to 175 range down to, I think, 130 grams of protein, because that's going to make it easier for him.
Mm-hmm. And it's still scientifically backed.
Exactly. It's not going down to 30 grams per day. It's not going to be detrimental to his progress.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I think a simple way to look at it is there are some people who will fast one time a week. They just don't eat anything for a whole day, one time a week, and they still do totally fine as long as their protein is met the rest of the week, their strength training, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, if you miss your protein on one day, it's not that big of a deal at all. It's not a big deal at all. Mm. It's just funny because, like, at least maybe I celebrate 4th of July different, but I'm like steaks all day. Yeah. Like, it's just, we're grilling steaks tonight. I had some Greek yogurt this morning. Like, it's super easy for me. I'm not a hot dog guy. I know hot dogs are a big 4th of July food.
I'm not either.
Yeah, steaks and burgers are really where it's at. And like, for me, it's just like, I just like a steak. What are you having tonight?
I want to make one last real quick point. Technically, protein is muscle sparing, so higher protein levels are more necessary in a deficit than they are in a surplus. Mm-hmm. And that's just one little layer I want to add to this question, because I forgot who asked it, but they said, because I'm going to be in a surplus, can I reduce protein? Yeah, you actually have a more legitimate scientific reason to be on lower protein, because you're going to have more total calories. You'll be at less risk of losing muscle. You're not going to lose that much muscle in one day anyway, but if you wanted to be close to optimal.
Yeah. If you wanted to ISTJ it and really like be like very precise.
What am I doing today? We're going over to my parents'. It's very rainy here. I don't know if you can tell the lighting has changed through this podcast, but it got dark out. And so it's not the greatest day, but we'll go over there. We're going to grill, play some board games.
What are you grilling?
I'm not in charge of the meat. Probably steaks. We still have some of our cow that my family went in on.
Nice.
Those
That's
steaks
awesome.
are unbelievable. Maybe kebabs, a lot of fruit, a lot of berries. My mom often makes this fruit pizza dessert with like a pie crust and a cream cheese frosting and then all different blueberries on top. Yeah, that's pretty legit. We'll see if that's there.
Take a picture of that. I want to see that.
All right, I will. Steaks all day for you?
Yeah. It's so funny. My wife loves red meat. Like, she loves steak. And so ever since we got the grill, she also likes that, it gives her a few nights a week away from cooking. Mm-hmm. So like, and I've really enjoyed it because then I like getting out and just grilling. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go to the grocery store. I'll get a workout in, and then I'll go to the grocery store, pick up some steaks, and grill. And
sounds like a great day. Did you get your fireworks yet?
No, I'm not. It's funny.
You're not going to?
I was going to. You know what it was? I was ready to do it. My wife was not happy about it. She was like, it's dangerous, da da da. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. The reason I'm not doing it is because last night, our neighbors were setting off fireworks while our daughter was sleeping.
Curtis freaked out. Oh, got it.
No, Curtis doesn't care. Curtis he's a maniac. He didn't care at all. My daughter was sleeping, and my wife and I were both just like watching the monitor, being like, is she going to wake up? Is she going to wake up? Is she going to wake up? And I was like, I don't want to do this to other families. I don't want to be like the person and I wasn't mad. My wife was like, should we call someone? I was like, no, let them have it. Like, we're not going to be the people who call cops on kids doing that. I just don't want to be that person. I want them to have their fun. But I was like, I don't want to add to the noise. And like, there are going to be plenty of fireworks. It's fine.
And late. They do them until like 11 o'clock at night, at least around here.
Yeah. And it was July 3rd yesterday. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, come on.
Those are.
But it's a big thing here. They've been doing it for like a week.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. They've been doing it like almost every night for the last week. Sometimes they'll just do it randomly.
I feel like the 3rd and the 4th are the most legitimate nights. And then, you know, maybe if you're up, if like cabin life, you can do it through the weekend. But if you're lighting them off on like July 8th at 11 o'clock at night on a work night, like
you're a real douchebag.
Yeah. Like I'm really close to coming over there and being like, what's going on here? I'm trying to sleep. Great episode. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Bangers only. 5-star review would be much appreciated if you have 1 minute in your schedule today to do that for us. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.
See ya.